It is a little bit unusual to have a British film in a foreign language, particularly when it's in Portuguese. But I should say it's not really a British film. We would classify it really as a Brazilian film. This is a Brazilian-British co-production. But the only British people who were there was me and the producer, Chris Tickier, and actually the first, Richard Stiles. But there's only 3 of us there. Everybody else was Brazilian, so it was much more of a Brazilian film than a British film. Well, it was the book. Andy Mulligan, who's a teacher, actually, he wrote this book based on his experience in Brazil, India, and the Philippines, actually, about poverty and corruption. And it sort of, the book is infused with all his different experiences. So I started off in his footsteps, really, starting off in Brazil, mostly because I had a friend there, Fernando Meirelles, who's a filmmaker there. So I went to talk to him, and then he had, because of the films he's made there and the TV shows he's made there, they have a very well-developed relationship with the different communities, because chances are, by the way, the story is about 3 kids who live and work on a landfill site, so chances are we're going to work with non-professionals, so they have a very good relationship with these communities. So we started doing workshops there and talking to different people, and and then I really went nowhere else, because it just felt such a fantastic fit for the story. But also, more importantly, Brazil itself at that moment, leading up to the World Cup and the Olympics soon, is going through this extraordinary process of change and anger at poverty and corruption, but a real sense of hope and in terms of the transforming power of what the people can do, and demonstrations. And so we found 3 kids who have a real sense of justice and anger and fury at the military police, but also a sense of hope, and that just felt like a perfect match. This is a very different story, I hope. Probably all directors say that. This is an adventure story, in a sense. It's an adventure story about these 3 kids who find something in this landfill site. But I think the real difference, the really interesting difference, is that there is a sort of a genre of films, if you like, particularly out of Brazil, called favela films, which are, life tends to be very tough in those films. They're very desaturated, and there's a lot of violence, and then usually people die. And this is not one of those films. This is much more, I mean, in a sense it's a fairy tale, but this is an adventure film about these 3 kids who actually do get away with it. And in that sense, it's an unusual mashup of different genres that's not really in the cinema novo sort of tradition. It's much more in the tradition of, I don't know, in the English version, I don't know what I call it, Swallows and Amazons. It's got more Swallows and Amazons about it than City of God. And then, and in that sense, it is a film for young people. But I hope the families share it and families can go and watch it. And the thing that I think is amazing about the film, and we were very lucky with this, is that it's a story about the friendship and courage of the 3 real people, the 3 real protagonists, whose own story is, astonishing. They all come from non-traditional family backgrounds. They've all got very extreme economic and educational challenges. And they still come through, shining through, I think, as sort of extraordinary individuals in this tale. Well, it had its challenges, which I enjoyed enormously, I hasten to add. But obviously, the challenges are I'm working in a language I don't speak. The kids themselves are quite live in and work in a certain amount of chaos, so you have to get used to it and have a crew that's available to that. But luckily enough, with Martin and Rooney, who are the sort of in the film working as NGOs, sort of trying to help out nearby, both of them have experience of doing literally that. So they brought their own literal experiences from Martin's work in the Philippines in Smoky Mountain, and Rooney and I's work in Kenya. So the advantage for me was that they were very used to that sort of, and actually very good working improvisationally with the kids, who would just bring them stuff on a day-by-day basis and a scene-by-scene basis, which we encouraged to make sure the film had the authenticity and ownership by the 3 main leads.